Okay, so here we are, the three wise men, or the three stooges from the TBA. Brian Mayo, trustee, I'm Philip Newton, deputy chairman, and Colin Brassett, one of our newest trustees. Have you found the TBA since you've been sitting on the board?
Well, I'm happy to be called a wise man. Thank you for that.
No, he was calling you a stooge.
Oh, was he? Oh, sorry, I missed that bit. You know, there have been times I've heard in the past that the TBA have been referred to as being kind of inconsequential. It goes back a little bit. I think in recent times you can take that and abandon that sort of idea of inconsequentiality, because what the TBA has been doing, particularly in the last 3 or 4 years with the development of the GBB scheme, with the work in animal welfare, environmental sustainability, education, all of these things has been absolutely behaviour changing for the industry, and it's become an organisation that has real relevance going forward. And so I'm delighted to have been given the opportunity by the members to sit on the board and help to forward that agenda.
And of course then we've had COVID and Brexit to deal with. I mean, Brian, Brexit has been a minefield, and without the TBA, I don't think there'd be any horses shipping anywhere.
Yeah, until that came along, I would have thought that the major mission of the TBA is it's the one body in racing that thinks about the breed and the improvement of the breed in this country. With Brexit, it became a situation of continuing to be able to breed horses in this country. So it was all hands to the pump to save it. And without the TBA, I think that there wouldn't have been a breeding season in 2020.
Oh, I think that's absolutely right. I mean, the way that Stansted House and Claire and everybody swung into action to make certain that the 2020 breeding season was going to happen, and the protocols that they wrote, and that the instructions that they gave, and the government discussions that they took place.
Yeah.
I don't think it was widely understood either in the industry, and probably still isn't widely understood, just how the TBA saved the season, if you like. Tremendous piece of work, actually.
I think that's absolutely right. I mean, I absolutely agree with you, Colin. I think that the TBA is an organisation of great substance and influence in the industry. And I'm always shocked to know that there are 35 standing committees or boards in the whole of the racing industry, and the TBA is represented and represents breeders on every one of them.
Yeah, and the executive do a fantastic job attending to all these different interest groups that work across the industry. It's a huge effort they make, and actually some of the trustees as well.
There's a danger now that we could say, oh, COVID is getting out of the way, problem solved, won't repeat. Could be an equine pandemic next time, that something has to be done to save the breeding season in that situation. And again, who else but the TBA is going to do it? There will always be emergencies, and unless one body thinks about breeding and acts on it, then we've got a problem. And the TBA is the one body in racing that focuses on breeding.
But that's one of the reasons why we have to have the reserves that we do at the TBA, because we have to have sufficient money available to manage any major outbreak of disease.
Well, the other thing that always strikes me is probably a lot of TBA members think that they pay membership fees and that funds the TBA. That actually funds less than a quarter of what the TBA needs. It doesn't even fund the salaries of the people working in Stansted House and the cost of running Stansted House. It's a contribution, and it's a very useful contribution, but the key thing is the TBA needs a lot more funding than it's able to get from membership income, and that's where the sales levy comes in.
And you're getting me started, aren't you? Because the sales levy is absolutely key to the future of the British breeding industry, and that if members choose not to pay the levy, they're selling the industry short, they're selling themselves short, and they're selling the TBA short.
Yeah, but we need to thank folks who pay the levy. I mean, putting your hand in your pocket with all the different costs associated with breeding in this country, you can't take that for granted. And they deserve our thanks, because these monies are critical in helping us do what we do. We get that, we get donations, we get membership fees, and you know, we need all that money to continue to help change behaviour in the industry for the good of the breed and for the economic benefit of breeders. Something which the TBA has actually achieved in recent times.
The money that the levy goes to and the annual budget of the TBA a year, I mean, is relatively modest in terms of what's achieved by it.
Yeah.
And there's a major fund for veterinary purposes,
Yeah.
which is one of your babies, Brian.
The veterinary.
You'd
Sorry,
like to
from-
talk about it?
Oh right. Okay. Well, I will then. Yeah. The other things that the levy helps generate are investment in veterinary research, research that is done into potentially new vaccines, because the existing vaccines very often can't be developed within the equine industry without help from the TBA and without funding from the TBA and other interested people. And also research into equine fertility. That's another vital factor for breeders. So that's one of the key things that the TBA sales levy generates. Another one is education, where we're already doing a great deal on education, and we're going to do more, aren't we, Philip?
Well, we absolutely are. I mean, one of the big investments that the TBA has made is in the new TBA platform, which is a digital learning platform and an educational platform, which is going to pay huge influence in the industry in years to come. It's cost us a significant amount of money, and that was one of the reasons why we decided that we had to exit Thoroughbred Owner and Breeder, because print is becoming a thing of the past, and having the opportunity to invest in something like TBA is so significant for our membership, current and future.
Well, and I think it also helps in general encourage people from a diverse set of backgrounds, to come into the business and to get educated, and it attracts folks that perhaps might not in the past have been attracted to the industry, and if they were attracted to the industry might not have been able to get the education and the help they needed to make their way through a career path in the industry. And I think that's especially important in the context of what we do for education. The other thing I would highlight, actually, which I think that's a separate subject, and I think it's very poorly understood, but the TBA does a huge amount for owners. I mean, the GBB scheme, which you two guys have really been, the standard bearers for, it pays enormous amounts of money to owners in a way that I don't think we find in any other kind of organisation in the business. And you know the figures, I think, Brian, better than I do, but it's very significant, right, what we do for owners?
Yeah, more than 90% of the funding from the levy board for GBB goes to owners and connections.
Yeah.
The breeders basically put money in. They hopefully can win prizes back for nominating the horses, but the vast majority goes to owners, and it fuels the dream of racehorse ownership. I've had a great win. I won a £20,000 bonus last week. That's paid my training bills for a year, and GBB website is full of stories like that where owners have been encouraged by that, and I think it does far more to boost racehorse ownership, fueling the dream, than a small amount of money that they can win for finishing sixth.
I mean, I totally agree with that. And then of course the breeders also benefit because they get some financial reward, but they get the enhanced sales revenue from fillies at sale, and there's a clear track record that this has changed behaviour, and fillies are more popular, and the breeders benefit as well from that. It's a fantastically well conceived scheme, gentlemen. Done before I came along.
But the interesting thing about GBB is that it was an overnight sensation that took 8 years to plan, develop and deliver.
It's interesting, I think it takes me back to the initial presentation you made at the RAC Club 5 years ago maybe, when you had kind of just about got this whole thing, sorted, and you said this is what we're going to do, and I was sitting there listening to it, and I thought this is really going to change behaviour in the business. And it took a little while, I think, post that session that you held, to put all the ducks together and get all the approvals and get the funding, etc., etc. But it's happened. It's changed behaviour in a huge way, and you know there's more to come.
There absolutely is more to come. I mean, we're ambitious and aspirational for GBB. But one of the things that I think that needs to be made clear was that we wouldn't have got down the road without the economic impact studies and the investment that was made in those two economic impact studies. Because for the first time ever, the TBA had a database and a fact base to present an argument from. Yeah. And it was from those two studies that Brian and to a lesser extent me and Julian and Claire and the rest of the team, that we were able to model GBB. Yeah. But you know, we started off with MOPS and the Elite Mare Scheme, and that they paved the way to demonstrate to the levy board that we could be trusted with money.
Yeah, no, the levy board, I hope, are impressed with what you guys have. I'm a newbie, I wasn't responsible, but I hope they're impressed, because they should be. You know, I think what you've done, and the self-help, and again the behavioural change, which is what I always come back to, that you've executed within in the industry, I think has been fantastic. And
the key thing is that the levy board, one of the major objectives they've got is the improvement of breeds, it's thoroughbred breed in particular. When we can demonstrate that we're taking action to improve British breeding by very carefully targeting, as you say, the behaviour of people thinking of keeping mares in this country and which stallions they use and so on. When we can prove that we're targeting that and it's influencing behaviour, then it ticks the box for the levy board. It allows them to say they're fulfilling a statutory obligation, and we're very conscious of that. We can't just go along with a begging bowl saying, give us some money, we'll use it well. We need to show them very clearly that it's being used to improve the breed. But that's straightforward for the TBA, because it's the reason the TBA exists. That's why it was invented, and that's why we're still trying to do it.
Yeah, and not just improve the breed, but demonstrate clearly that there is a financial enhancement opportunity for the industry, because, you know, and you'll laugh at this, Brian, but, you know, what the TBA wants is a robust and sustainable industry. Is absolutely what we want. But I think, going back to GBB again, I'm thrilled with it, you're thrilled with it, the industry's thrilled with it. It couldn't have happened without a lot of consultation and working together with the BHA and the levy board, and that they should have significant appreciation. They're underappreciated too.
Yeah, no, I think that's right. You know, and moving on to another aspect of what the TBA do that has enormously impressed me as a new trustee is the work that's being done in animal welfare. You know, clearly it's front and centre in the minds of everybody associated with the industry. And just the other day, you know, the little booklet that the executive have produced on animal welfare dropped in the post, and it's fantastic. I mean, the amount of work that's gone into its production, and you know what it says to people who are involved in the welfare and you know, care of animals, I think is first class, and the TBA has a real duty in that area, and we're living up to that responsibility, in my view.
But you're quite right. We've a duty, and we've a duty to our members. We've a duty to the industry. We've a duty to the animals that are in our care. But as I keep saying, as the marketeer on the board, that it's not sufficient that we do it because we've always done it, but that we're seen to be doing it, and that the industry is seen to be doing it, and that the only way that we can do that is by making sure that we communicate it effectively to the world.
Yeah, we want best practice. I mean, we want to encourage best practice, and it's in all our interest to encourage best practice. And I would add to your list there, you know, what we need to do and what our responsibility is towards the environment as well. You know, whether it's studs or more widely in the industry, race courses and training yards, etc. And you know, clearly with this award we just recently won, we're being seen to be serious about the environmental sustainability situation in our industry, and rightly so.
I was going to make the point before you did that the breeding industry can't exist in isolation. It's a member of society in this country, and it has to behave in manners that are considered acceptable to society, and that applies to breeding and racing. That certainly means equine welfare. It means the welfare of the people that work in those industries, their education and how well they're looked after. And it also means that we have to look after the environment. Those things are expected of all businesses in society, and breeding is no different. The TBA has always done many of those things, but it's an increasing emphasis that we have to do it, and we have to be seen to do it, as Philip says. It's very important to do that to demonstrate our right to continue to operate in this modern society.
That's absolutely right, and that you touched on the word industry, and that what we also mustn't forget is that we're an important part of the British racing industry. We're the supply line, that we provide the product that races, and that we're really important as that part, but in isolation on ourselves, 20,000 rural jobs that couldn't be replaced, and a significant influence on the British racing programme. I mean, we do all of that too. We talk to the BHA about the way that racing should be structured, and the way that the production line should be managed to the racing programme.
So what would happen if we didn't have a sales levy? What would occur to the TBA? What would happen to these things?
Well, you know that we've spent hours and hours and hours at board meetings discussing alternative methods of funding, from toll levies to sales levies to the like. We have the sales levy. If we didn't get it, then the industry would be badly served and the TBA couldn't exist.
Yeah.
It's as simple and straightforward as that. We value every penny that we spend it effectively and efficiently. I don't see any fat at all in the TBA. We've got a great executive, led brilliantly by Claire.
I couldn't agree more.
Fantastic. And
Fantastic.
that they should be supported, and the board supports them, and that we appreciate the membership that support us as well.
Yeah. And basically all we're asking the members to do is, when they sell a horse, agree to the terms in the sales conditions that 0.75% will be given to the TBA of the horses sold in this country, which is considerably less than is paid in terms of the costs going to the sales companies. Simply allow that to happen. Basically the breeder only pays it when they've sold a horse. They don't pay it if they're keeping the horse or if something goes wrong with the horse. They pay it when they've had a success, and it's a relatively small amount of money that they're paying. Without it, the TBA simply would not exist.
No, it wouldn't, but it is also worth making the point that the big owner breeders all make contributions to the TBA.
Voluntary contributions.
They make voluntary contributions because they recognise the importance of it, so that it wouldn't be right to think that just the sales industry is supporting the TBA. The whole of the breeding industry supports the TBA, and we're very appreciative of that.